Welcome to another edition of GM's Corner. With me today, I have Jeff Dekruif, who's the CFO at the Ford Field and River Club. He's a club manager and a PGA professional as well. Welcome this morning.
Thanks, Mark. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. And can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your career path, what's led you back and forth across the country and where you've landed today a little bit?
I grew up on the West Coast in Arizona. Been around golf my whole life. Went to school at Arizona State for finance, but I've been playing golf, been around the golf industry, been working at private clubs ever since high school. So for the last 25 or so years, it's all I know. And ended up going up the ranks in finance, went through the PGA program, currently a level 1 associate, but I spent 12 years in finance with Troon Golf in Scottsdale, and eventually worked my way up to kind of a regional finance role, overseeing private clubs and their portfolio coast to coast. And that eventually brought me out to their flagship property, Belfair, which had the opportunity to work with you on their master plan, which was great. And then had the opportunity to take a job promotion to move more in the club management side. And I went to Blackhawk Country Club in Northern California, which is one of the largest member-owned residential communities in the state of California. About 5,000 acre master plan community, about 4,000 members. So a very large property, but we ended up wanting to go back to the southeast when COVID happened. We never sold our home back there, and so ended up going back to South Carolina, where life was a little more relaxed.
Low key in the low country?
Yeah. And had opportunity to lead as the general manager of Palmetto Bluff, which was a tremendous opportunity. And through that experience, I got a recruiting call from Mr. Johnstone to come to the Ford and to be his financial partner and get a pretty substantial renovation across the finish line.
How has your experience as a GM made you a better CFO and vice versa?
Now, that's a great question. And I went through the CCM program. I think what I learned most was an understanding of what it's like to be in other people's shoes. And I don't like to be considered, an accountant. I'm probably a bad accountant. I'm more of a financial strategist than I am an accountant. But to be able to work closely and have close relationships with the different department heads, members, be a true thought partner to our GM and COO, it's made me a more well-rounded leader, as well as it's helped me to better understand, what are the key drivers at a private club, what truly matters, what should we be focusing on in terms of financial strategy. It's helped me be a better teacher, an educator and leader to our team to help them understand their business and not just be in the service industry, but also be true business operators as well.
And bringing that financials, as we talked about, kind of stepping out of that back office and bringing it.
Yeah, you won't find me in my office too much. I don't like being there.
What are some of the data markers that you track that influence your decisions from both the CFO and the GM standpoint?
Sure. We definitely use data to drive all of our decisions. Everything we do is not an emotional one. We heavily use the services of club benchmarking. I'm very close with them. I served on their volunteer kind of strategic advisory council when they started rolling out their strategic monthly dashboard. But I've worked closely with Jim Butler and Ray Cronin for probably a decade. And their platform essentially gives you the framework of what you should be doing. We use their platform to vet not only our historical information, but our budget strategy as well. And so when it comes to the budget process and getting the budget approved, it's not me just producing a budget and showing it to folks. We have a third-party objective, true expert to also validate that what we're doing is putting us on the right path.
From the chair that I sit in, I refer to member surveys, focus group data, and capital needs assessments, or otherwise called building condition reports, as important data that we use in driving master planning. How would that be a consideration for you on a financial standpoint?
Absolutely. I think if there's one major critical issue that club benchmarking brought to life over the last, call it 5-7 years, was the unpreparedness of so many clubs in the industry with regards to understanding their true asset base, their conditions, and how do you plan for their eventual replacement, refurbishment, or eventual master planning and renovations. And so I'm big on having a true understanding of the asset base, and it's not just having a reserve study, but making sure that reserve study makes sense. It's updated constantly. A lot of companies might offer a reserve study and it goes to the club and it just sits on a shelf collecting dust. We revisit ours with our team 4 times a year. And not only looking at what was put in it, but again, asking the question, does that make sense? And maybe it does make sense, but maybe we don't have the capital funding model in place that we can replace $12 million worth of stuff in 2027. When we're only bringing in, $3-4 million a year in capital revenue. So we kind of got to smooth it out. And so we use a platform at our club that gives me as a little more flexibility in terms of being able to smooth things out and putting it in the right bucket in the right year. Sometimes we got to move things up, sometimes we got to move things back. But we have a true understanding of our asset base at our property, as well as the capital needs in terms of funding to pay for it in the future. And then we tie our financial model and our dues and our initiation fees to make sure that it covers everything in there.
From where I sit, that's really important and really impressive, because it's one thing to know what you need to do or have a document that says it. It's another to be financially prepared to pay for the long-term maintenance at a club. And too often we run into not having a really big nut to pay when all we really want to do is pretty up the club and appeal to new members. So that's really important. Fast forwarding to the Ford where you are today, what kind of data have you used at the Ford to accelerate your capital improvements programs, and what do you have in store? What are the next steps?
Sure. Well, obviously we're moving forward with the largest project in the club's history. It's actually going to be the largest member-owned renovation project in the entire Low Country right now. But that doesn't happen overnight, right? We had to take our membership on a journey of education of why we need to do this, showing them the data, showing them the condition of the asset base, how much of our assets were actually fully depreciated, and whether we went forward with a master plan renovation or not, we have to do something, right? And so, at our club, our GM and I, we probably did like 16 mini town hall sessions. And then prior to the eventual vote, we rented out the city center, and we did 2 back-to-back major town hall meetings. And obviously the Dietrich's firm came down and presented as well, but I probably had 50 slides on financials to answer every question that members might have, any concern, address things that they'd brought up over the course of kind of the smaller town hall sessions. But we took our membership along the journey, and what was most impressive about it was at the end, the level of confidence. It came out in the vote, right? And I've always kind of been told if you can get a 70% yes vote, that's kind of a miracle in a private club. And we get the vote back, and it's 90% yes. And it's not 90% yes on a small project. It's 90% yes on a pretty large project. So, but we wouldn't have got that without education, without taking our members along the journey to understand the financial model, the financial conditions, using data to help drive those decisions. So they had a level of confidence that they understood why we were doing this, and they knew that it was the right thing to do.
A common sense thing to do, right? Doing nothing is never a good option.
No.
And failure of a vote is often a terrible option because it just stalls everything. So really excited to see what the Ford has in store as this capital plan evolves. I want to thank you for joining me today, Jeff.
Absolutely, always a pleasure.
I hope to have you back soon, and we'll find out more about this wonderful work at the Ford.